Hey everyone, Isho here. So far, we've explored the hidden connections between Christianity, Judaism, and Hinduism, uncovered the link between Enoch and Thoth, and taken a crash course in Buddhism and Enlightenment. In this video, we're going to step into the hidden web of metaphysics and explore how it connects to the physical world, shedding light on why the universe exists and its deeper purpose. This will be a mind blowing and eye opening dive into the hidden aspects of reality itself. Let's dive in. Our world is composed of tiny building blocks that vibrate with frequency, giving the illusion of solid matter and creating the world as we know it. Have you ever wondered about the underlying laws that govern this reality? It's fascinating how the smallest atoms and particles come together to form the vast patterns and structures we see, like scaffolding that holds the material world in place. The three dimensions of space and the fourth dimension of time are just a small fraction of the observable universe. Hidden dimensions, much like radio waves, X rays, gamma rays, exist beyond our perception, waiting to be discovered. Here's a fun fact. Did you know you've never actually touched anything in your life? Even though your nerves and sensors tell your brain you're holding something, the atoms in your body and the object you're holding never truly touch. Atoms are made up of nearly 99% empty space, and even the atoms inside your body aren't touching each other. They're held together by weak nuclear forces, kind of like electromagnetic fields. So, what stops your hand from passing through a solid object, like a table? The answer lies in the electromagnetic resonance and the resistance between molecules. While plasma, water, and gases can move through each other with more ease, your skin is solid and not a liquid, which keeps it from passing through solid matter. Let's begin by breaking down the dimensions according to string theory, which will serve as the foundation for understanding the metaphysical aspects of reality. Some may argue that string theory is becoming outdated and that quantum mechanics offers a broader explanation of how dimensions work. While it is true that quantum mechanics is still relatively new and evolving field, it hasn't yet fully explained all the mysteries of the universe. So for now, we'll start with string theory to explore the physical dimensions, and later we'll touch on how quantum mechanics ties into the bigger picture. In a 3D program, we usually refer to the first three dimensions as X, Y, and Z. In string theory, these dimensions unfold as follows. The first dimension is represented as a point or a line with no width. The second dimension is a flat surface. Think of a piece of paper that can't bend or be folded. We live in the third dimension, which includes width, height, and depth, all of which are experienced through the fourth dimension, time. When we move into the fifth dimension, time splits up like the branches of a tree, opening up choices and possibilities. Some New Age perspectives suggest that the seed of consciousness, or the soul, resides in this dimension, or possibly even a higher one. Our perception, however, is limited to the unfolding of the first four dimensions. Through meditation and heightened awareness, some believe the fifth and higher dimensions could be revealed to us. In the sixth dimension, these choices from the fifth dimension form a catalog or a nexus of all possibilities, what we might consider a multiverse. It's where all potential outcomes from different choices coexist. The seventh dimension is even more abstract. It isn't just a collection of possibilities, it represents alternate realities governed by entirely different rules. Imagine a world where light travels at a different speed, or where the periodic table is arranged in a completely different way. Perhaps time flows backwards, or gravity and physical laws work in a way that defy our understanding of them here in our reality. The eighth dimension is a compilation of all the different possible laws of physics and alternate forms of the universe. It's as though the eighth dimension serves as a blueprint or a library of potential universal designs, each one showcasing a different way a universe could be constructed. In the ninth dimension, we find the framework that supports all these universes. Picture universes that have never experienced a big bang or a big crunch, where particles never formed atoms and thus couldn't create solid planets or stars. In some realities, there might be nothing but particles that don't interact in the same way as in our version of the universe. Finally, the 10th dimension contains the infinite possibilities of everything that could ever exist. It's the totality of all conceivable and inconceivable universes, all coexisting within a grand, infinite framework. If our reality is indeed built on the string theory of dimensions, it would suggest that there are countless hidden and invisible aspects of existence that transcend both space and time itself. The quantum slit experiment has revealed a fascinating phenomenon. Light seems to exhibit awareness when being observed. In this experiment, photons are directed through two slits in a solid barrier. When we observe the photons with measuring equipment, they behave like tiny particles, landing on the photosensitive film in two distinct areas. However, when we don't observe them, they form wave patterns, much like ripples in water. Things get even stranger when we switch on the observation device halfway through the experiment. At this point, the photons, which were previously behaving like a wave, collapse into distinct particles that travel either left or right through the slits, almost as if the act of observation itself determines the photon's behavior. This suggests that reality itself resists revealing the true nature of photons as waves and particles simultaneously. Interestingly, this phenomena mirrors a concept in Buddhism known as pratityasamutpada, or the principle of dependent origination. This principle states that all phenomena arise in dependence upon other phenomena, and nothing exists independently or in isolation. In essence, there is an observer and the observed. One cannot exist without the other. Without the observed is like potential energy waiting to manifest, similar to how data in a video game isn't displayed as 3D objects until the computer translates it into visual instructions for the screen. The screen doesn't simulate 3D depth, it simply renders a grid of colors that our brain interprets as depth. In the same way, the quantum field exists as potential information, waiting to be observed and collapsed into specific forms. The observed reality, just like the video game scene, is not real in the sense of being a solid, fixed entity. It's merely an illusion created by complex interplay of data and observation. It's remarkable to think that Buddhism, with its ancient teachings, was ahead of its time by several millennia. The concept of dependent origination seems to resonate with the principles of quantum mechanics. Both show us that our reality, whether on a cosmic scale or at the quantum level, is interconnected and depends on the presence of an observer. Perhaps we could say that Buddhism addresses the macrocosmic side of our observed reality, while quantum mechanics dives into the microcosmic details, revealing a similar underlying truth. Interestingly enough, an atom counts as an observer, yet it has no eyes or senses. This raises an intriguing question. What is it that enables an atom or any quantum particle to know that it is being observed? And how does this connect to our understanding of consciousness? Still, on the topic of quantum mechanics, we arrive at one of the most iconic thought experiments, the Schrödinger's cat. A conscious living creature is placed inside a sealed box. Inside the box is a cesium atom with a 50% chance of decaying. If it decays, a detector senses the emission of a gamma ray and triggers the release of a poison gas capsule, killing the cat. Until the box is open and the system observed, the cat is said to exist in a quantum superposition, both alive and dead at the same time. It is only upon observation that the wave function collapses and a single outcome, life or death, is revealed. But in this video, for the first time in human history, a new solution and proposed angle will be shown that could explain the strange duality of this scenario. So hold on to your papers, fellow scholars. From the observer's perspective, the cat is both dead and alive until observed. But what about from the cat's point of view? From the cat's perspective, it's placed in a box. It waits, time passes, nothing happens. Eventually, the box opens and the cat is taken out again, safe and sound. Because yes, don't be cruel to animals. Wait a second. Are you saying that there are two entirely different outcomes depending on whose perspective we consider? Exactly. And this is where the principles of relativity and quantum immortality come into play. The cat cannot observe its own death. Conscious experience doesn't continue into a reality where the cat dies. It only persists along the timeline where survival is possible. Life, from the inside, only ever experiences continuity. Death is something that happens from the outside, an observer's reality, not the subject's. Let's reframe this with an alternative version of the thought experiment. Imagine instead that the cat is playing Russian roulette. The observer watches while the cat loads a bullet into one of the 6 chambers, spins the cylinder, and pulls back the hammer. The probability of a lethal shot? 1 in 6. Let's say in this particular scenario, the bullet does line up. The trigger is pulled, the hammer drops. What happens? From the observer's perspective, a tragedy. The gun fires, the cat paints the wall in abstract brain expressionism. But from the cat's perspective, nothing happens. The primer misfires. The round was a dud. It walks away unharmed. Why? Because even in real-world physics, there's always a small chance of misfire, especially with cheap ammunition. That chance might only be 0.1 to 5%, but from the observer's perspective, the bullet has an almost 99% chance of being lethal. From the cat's perspective, that slim misfire chance becomes the only viable path because it is the only one in which consciousness continues. This is the essence of quantum immortality. A conscious being cannot experience its own non-existence. You don't perceive the timelines in which you perish, you only ever wake up in the ones where you survive. Because all life, until its final breath, continues on a timeline where breath is still being drawn, and even then, what we call death may simply be another state transition, like energy changing form, never disappearing. And shout out to John McAfee, if you know, you know. This discussion isn't just for fun. The principle of quantum immortality will become critically important in the next part of this video. One of the most awe-inspiring phenomena in our universe is the existence of black holes, collapsed stars that have imploded under their own gravity, creating regions of space so dense that even light cannot escape. These objects can have a mass greater than that of entire stars, yet be compressed into a point smaller than a pinhead. The result is an intense gravitational field that warps space-time itself, forming what's known as an event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing, not even light, can return. Theoretical physicist Roy Kerr expanded on Einstein's general relativity to describe a more detailed model of rotating black holes now called Kerr black holes. These aren't just dense points in space, they have structure. According to Kerr's model, they contain multiple layers: the outer event horizon, the ergosphere, the inner event horizon, and the ring singularity at the core. In theory, spacetime behaves differently within each of these regions. It's been suggested that if someone or something could pass through the inner horizon without being destroyed, they might enter a region of exotic physics where time behaves in unpredictable ways, potentially even allowing access to parallel universes or reverse timelines. This leads to a compelling possibility. Could black holes be gateways to other universes? Might they be part of a larger cosmic cycle where a black hole collapse in one universe becomes the seed for a big bang in another? While speculative, some physicists have explored the idea of white holes or bound cosmologies where matter compressed into an ultra-dense point could re-expand into a new reality. Others have suggested that black holes may connect to a form of hyperspace, a theoretical medium through which travel between different universes or even point in time might occur. An intriguing implication arises when considering the nature of atoms themselves. If a black hole forms from atoms collapsing under extreme pressure, or perhaps when they accidentally interact, much like how splitting an atom can trigger a nuclear explosion, it suggests that every atom in the universe could potentially act as a gateway. This could lead to a portal into the interior of black holes or even open pathways to other universes. While mainstream science has not confirmed these ideas, they remain fertile grounds for exploration, both in theoretical physics and in intuitive or mystical insight. As for gravity itself, the so-called magical force that governs the structure of galaxies, planets, and our everyday lives, its true nature remains elusive. General relativity describes it as a curvature of spacetime, but some believe there's more to the story. One possibility often discussed in alternative science circles is that gravity may be related to electrostatic or electromagnetic fields. In fact, certain declassified patents, such as the one for the so-called TR-3B Black Manta triangular spacecraft, describe using electrostatic line charges and plane wave interactions to produce lift and propulsion. If such technology is real, it suggests the possibility of artificial gravity via manipulation of electromagnetic fields. Even in simple experiments, we can see echoes of this idea. Rub an inflated balloon against your hair and it clings to a wall, demonstrating how electrostatic forces can counteract gravity, if only briefly. This humble trick, while playful, hints at a deeper principle that gravity may not be as fixed or untouchable as we assume. It may be in part a field that can be understood and possibly engineered. Now, let's circle back to what we explored in the last section, the idea of a quantum immortal consciousness, not playing Russian roulette this time, but perhaps entering a black hole. What would happen to a consciousness that dies in one timeline but continues in another where it survives? This is where black holes become truly fascinating. They may serve as portals to other universes, just as quantum immortality seems to function as a portal to alternative timelines and realities. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that a spacecraft enters the singularity of a black hole. Where would it go? The most likely outcome, from a physical standpoint, is spaghettified death, the crushing forces near the singularity tearing matter apart. But if consciousness cannot die until it draws its final breath, then perhaps something else happens. Perhaps the person falling into the black hole wakes up the day before the fall ever occurred, with no memory of what happened. From their subjective point of view, nothing happens. Yet, objectively, they have died in one universe and emerged in another where they are still alive. This leads to a powerful question. If we could map the locations of black holes and wormholes and understand their internal structure, could we use them for interdimensional travel? Could we achieve teleportation or even time travel within our own universe? The real challenge would be finding an equivalent black hole in the destination universe that allows for a return trip. Even then, the process might be extraordinarily painful, and there may be no escaping the objective death of those who pass through. But from the traveler's perspective, they could emerge intact, reinstated in the original universe, moments before the jump, having bypassed their own death. It's just food for thought. Perhaps the idea is ahead of its time, or perhaps it's a half-truth, something not yet fully understood. Either way, the implications are mesmerizing. The image on screen comes from a once classified document connected to NASA, exploring the theoretical challenges and mathematics behind faster-than-light travel, specifically how warping spacetime around a vessel might allow it to exceed the speed of light. If the figures in this document hold any truth, then warping at the speed of light would require roughly 10 decillion joules. That's about the same amount of energy our sun produced over 10 billion years, or equivalent to the energy released in a gamma-ray burst, one of the most powerful events in the universe. Now, if we wanted to travel at 100 times the speed of light, the energy required jumps to just over 3 quattordecillion joules, which is close to the total energy output of the entire Milky Way galaxy over several years. As of now, there is no known way to produce or store that level of energy. And yet, when we think of ships in Star Trek zipping around at different warp speeds, it becomes clear that whatever power source they're imagining on board is beyond anything humanity can currently generate. Interestingly, this full-body teleportation pattern refers to something called hyperspace, a theoretical realm where light travels slower than in our universe. If we could open a portal into hyperspace, we might bypass the need to warp spacetime entirely, potentially saving an enormous amount of energy. But even opening such a portal would be a monumental challenge, requiring energy levels far beyond what any of our power generators can currently produce. Now that we've explored time travel, hyperspace, and quantum immortality, it's time to ask the big metaphysical question: why does anything exist at all? If we take John Murphy's law seriously, anything that can happen will happen given an infinite amount of time. Maybe it offers a clue to the origin of the universe itself. The only issue is we can't directly observe what happened before the Big Bang, nor what will happen after 50 to 100 billion years when the universe may collapse into a big crunch. So it might seem like time isn't infinite. But if we assume that the Big Bang leads to a big crunch and that a big crunch also precedes a Big Bang, then the universe could be cyclical, looping endlessly, repeating or remixing itself forever. In that case, time is infinite, just not observable from within the cycle. After much study and reflection, I've come to a personal theory that I call Isho's Law. Our universe cannot not exist, it has to exist. At least in the third, fourth, and fifth dimensions, its existence is inevitable. But because duality is a fundamental principle, it's possible that there are also universes that do not exist, or at least not in the way ours does. Returning to Murphy's Law, we find perhaps the biggest clue as to why reality exists. And it's a haunting thought. Everything that can be imagined must exist somewhere. Fiction becomes fact, dreams becomes dimensions, and stories become histories, somewhere in the infinite expanse of all possible universes. The totality of existence may be here to simulate every possible outcome of every possible timeline. In that case, free will doesn't truly exist on the grand scale, everything is predetermined. But paradoxically, in each moment, we do have free will. We make choices. So, how can both determinism and free will exist simultaneously? If everything is God, if every being is God in human form and all things are ideas within God's mind, then each choice we make is still a part of God's larger predetermined plan. It's both authored and improvised at the same time. But the real problem is infinity itself. Our universe is just one of an infinite number of realities. There could be entire timelines where humans never evolved, where another species took our place, but still lived through the same major events. Think Planet of the Apes, a world that mirrors ours but with apes in the roles of humans. In that same vein, every story ever told, every novel, game, film, and myth must also exist somewhere. Cthulhu, Lord of the Rings, Narnia, Harry Potter, the entire Stephen King multiverse, they all exist somewhere, especially in the higher dimensions where logic breaks down and abstraction rules. Our own history, our myths and legends could just be one of those stories, perhaps authored by an alien or interdimensional being in another universe. It also raises a chilling possibility that fictional works like Stranger Things might not be entirely fictional. What if the show is inspired by real events, where the government in secret open a literal portal to a dark realm filled with monstrous entities? If that's the case, it would suggest they possess highly advanced, perhaps even future-derived technology, and that they've been playing God behind closed doors. This would suggest that authors are not simply inventing worlds, but discovering them, tapping into something real and transcribing it for us. In that sense, J.K. Rowling becomes either the god of Harry Potter's universe or its interdimensional witness, revealing a story that already exists in the multiverse. But then another question arises. What was the first cycle of the universe? Was there ever a true beginning? Or is the idea of a beginning itself part of the illusion, just another loop in a cosmic Möbius strip with no start or end? Religious traditions often say God created everything, but that opens up a deeper question: what is God? Is God a person, a force, a simulation, or a program, or simply the inevitable chain of causality playing itself out? Is all of existence a kind of simulation, not running on hardware but on pure code, manifesting itself through infinite recursion? In Rick and Morty, Rick powers his car using a miniverse inside a battery where inhabitants unknowingly generate electricity for both their world and his. If a universe could exist within a black hole, then maybe Rick's miniverse isn't so far-fetched. This leads us to a deeper exploration: the hidden iterations and multiple timelines within our fourth and fifth dimensional reality. Throughout history, countless powerful figures have been known for their abilities in scrying, divination, and predicting future events. Nostradamus, for example, predicted the rise of Napoleon and Hitler, the Great Fire of London, and possibly even the 9/11 attacks. He also foretold the succession of popes in the Vatican. The Book of Revelation, written by John of Patmos, predicts the arrival of the Antichrist, devastating plagues, wars, and the final judgment. Many have linked it to the fall of Rome, world wars, and the rise of totalitarian regimes. Similarly, the Oracle of Delphi, a revered figure in ancient Greece, accurately predicted the outcome of the Persian Wars and advised King Croesus that if he attacks Persia, a great empire would fall. Ironically, it turned out to be his own. Mother Shipton, another historical prophet, predicted the Great Fire of London, the invention of iron ships and even submarines. Baba Vanga predicted events such as the 9/11 attacks, the 2004 tsunami, the election of Barack Obama, and alleged future events for 2023 and beyond, including wars and technological advancements. Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, predicted the 1929 stock market crash, World War II, shifts in Earth's magnetic field, and even the future discovery of Atlantis. Leonardo da Vinci, though not a prophet in the traditional sense, sketched designs for flying machines, tanks, parachutes, and automated robots, all centuries ahead of their time. If it's indeed possible to see or predict future events, it suggests that with enough knowledge of present circumstances, a powerful artificial intelligence could analyze vast amounts of current data and potentially predict certain outcomes with some degree of accuracy. Most people might resist the idea that their lives, actions, or even thoughts are predictable, but the truth is, if you go to work every day, it's safe to assume you'll be going to work tomorrow. What's difficult to accept, however, is the idea that the small, seemingly random occurrences, like the YouTube algorithm predicting what videos you'll watch based on topics you've recently discussed or even thought about, could be part of this predictive phenomena. Considering the infinite timelines in the multiverse and the vastness of the fifth dimension, there exists a version of you in which you are rich, successful, or living in a different part of the world. A you that made slightly different choices in life. Who would you be if you had chosen a different college or career? It's hard to say that that version of you doesn't exist, especially when, in the grand scope of the infinite multiverse, such a version is just as real as the life you're living now. Let's elevate this idea even further. What if you've already lived this life more than once? Perhaps this is the 100th or 1000th iteration of your current existence. Due to the immense amount of time between these iterations and the phenomena of reincarnation amnesia, we cannot remember our past selves. The knowledge of our parallel selves is hidden within the fabric of infinite time. If there is a judgment at the end of life, whether at the pearly gates or in the afterlife, and you were asked, would you like to go back and change something? Who's to say that your higher self or your spiritual essence would not agree to relive your life to correct its course? This concept would imply that we live in a reality where solipsism is the default. You are the only true existence, and everyone you meet is a figment of your imagination, yet their lives are also just as valid and real in their own way. Over time, one of your iterations would inevitably become canon. After enough attempts and experiences, one version of you, one timeline, would become the definitive reality of your existence. This suggests that there is a form of divine mercy for those who die prematurely or experience accidents. At the end of their lives, they may be given the opportunity to try again in another iteration, to make better decisions and correct the course of their life. This idea also hints at the existence of a limbo, bardo, or purgatory like state, a realm neither fully alive nor fully dead. It's an afterlife where souls haven't yet ascended to heaven nor reincarnated, but instead they are compelled to relive stages of their lives to make better choices and align with a higher path. Given the infinite possibilities and quantum fluctuations that can unfold, these alternate realities are not fiction or fantasy from our perspective. Just like books and movies tell stories from one point of view, in the grand scope of existence, our alternate timeline lives are just as real as the life we're currently living. And in this multiverse, purgatory becomes a real experience, not just confined to our current existence. In the endless stretches of time, it could be anywhere from 1,000 to 100,000 billion years between iterations of the universe, yet consciousness seamlessly traverses these immense periods with no effort, endlessly learning, evolving, and exploring. Now that we've explored our dimensions, realities, and timelines, let's examine the third, fourth, and fifth dimensions from a fresh perspective, one that perhaps scientists have not yet discovered. This perspective could offer us a possible explanation for how, in the near future, we might achieve teleportation through space and time. The challenge with teleportation and time travel lies in the locality of objects. Our Earth, for example, moves in a spiral around and with the Sun. So, if you were to use a teleportation or time travel device to go from London to New York, you'd encounter a problem. Neither London nor New York would be in the same position when you started your journey as they would be when you arrive. New York would have moved from its original position, meaning you would effectively be teleporting into empty space without a spacesuit or a ship. To make teleportation possible, you'd have to take into account not just the time you are traveling to, but also the new position of your destination in spacetime. Before we move forward, let's consider an important question. Where is the center of the universe? Most people might answer that it's where the Big Bang occurred. But if the universe is infinite in all directions, the answer becomes simpler than we might think. Step outside and look at the night sky. In that moment, your perspective and consciousness becomes the center of the universe. No matter where you are or who you are, we are all the center of it. Some may argue this isn't the objective center, but subjectively, each of us is a center in this vast infinite expanse. Now, what exactly is time? It could be seen as a series of snapshots of 3D space that we flow through, constantly shifting, a frame of reference that moves forward. As human consciousness, we experience 1 second as, well, 1 second. But time behaves differently depending on our experience. When we're having fun, time seems to fly, and when we're bored, it seems to drag. This perception of time is relative. Under the influence of adrenaline or psychoactive substances, time can feel faster or slower. If photons of light were sentient, they might tell us they don't experience time at all. They travel instantly from point A to point B, as Einstein's theory of relativity suggests. So, what is the shortest measurable unit of time we know? It's Planck time, the time it takes for light to travel one Planck length. Can we consider a snapshot of the universe to be one Planck time long, a frame of reality itself? While Planck time is the smallest known unit of time, let's entertain the idea of something even smaller, perhaps a quantum interval, or chronon, or infinitesimal time. These could represent snapshots of 3D space, each one being a frame of reality, almost like a frozen bubble of time. Imagine that each bubble of time overlaps and is in the exact same position as every other bubble, each Big Bang or universe existing in the same location, the center. Now, envision a 3D dot matrix where all these bubbles of frozen time are laid out side by side like a grid. This arrangement would be the most efficient way to store the time bubbles if we were to think of it like a computer or a machine, but the matrix is likely a higher dimensional structure, so it wouldn't look exactly like a grid. We use this 3D grid matrix for visualization to help us understand how these time bubbles might overlap and exist in the infinite space of the universe. In this model, it's possible that outside of our observable universe, there could be neighboring universes in every direction: up, down, left, right, forward, and backward. But while these other universes may exist in the same space, the distances between them are practically impossible to traverse. After all, our observable universe is roughly 93 billion light years across, and the distances between universes would be longer than that distance, as we do not see any light from anything outside of our observable universe. Based on everything we've discussed so far, I've come up with a theory about how consciousness might traverse time and space. This theory, however, is rooted in the idea that time doesn't actually exist as a standalone entity. It can only be experienced by the consciousness living within it. In a sense, we are trapped in time, moving through it, but not truly of it. Imagine that each frozen snapshot, each bubble of time, is laid out in an infinite matrix grid. Now, suppose we could travel from one bubble to another while all the bubbles continue to exhibit forward acceleration in time, ever changing but never truly moving. In this model, it's possible that every conscious entity that experiences time is not actually moving through it, but is instead moving through space itself. Time, in this sense, becomes something we pass through rather than something we move along. This concept suggests that we are all on a kind of treadmill where our consciousness travels faster than the speed of light, or space itself moves through us faster than light. Each decision we make, every choice we experience, would essentially determine the next frame of time that we'll move into, or alternatively, the next frame that moves through us. To travel from the year 1900 to 2000, for instance, might not be about moving through time at all. Instead, it could simply be about traveling from one bubble to another in 3D space. If we could map this grid of bubbles, we could potentially open portals through hyperspace, allowing us to jump from one point in time to another. But doing so would require an immense amount of energy, as we would be crossing a much larger magnitude of space, way beyond the 93 billion light years of the observable universe. This theory is based on deep meditation and a synthesis of my understanding of quantum physics and string theory. It proposes that time cannot exist in 3D space as we usually conceive it. Instead, it might be part of an infinite grid we move through, like a treadmill where the grid itself moves through us faster than the speed of light. With all that said, we'll now conclude this video by exploring the concept of heaven or the afterlife. It's clear that many spiritual individuals throughout history, after engaging with powerful substances like magic mushrooms, ayahuasca, and through deep transcendental meditation, have come to believe in a place that exists between life and death. This place seems to act as a landing point for souls, or perhaps as a source from which they come. It suggests that our true state of being isn't quantum entangled with our physical bodies, but instead transcends the physical world. Numerous near-death experiences, NDEs, describe a common theme: a tunnel leading to a world on the other side where deceased family members await. In some instances, individuals who have had shared NDEs report seeing angels transporting someone they know to this place while they themselves were compelled to return to life. This suggests that heaven is open to everyone, regardless of their faith or spiritual beliefs, and that all living beings will eventually return to the source from which they came. This concept frames every human being as an archetype of figures like the Christian Lucifer or the Buddhist Atman or Brahman. We were all cast out of heaven to live here in what could be considered hell or physical existence. Everything that is born must die, and everything that dies must in turn be reborn. This means that the famous inventors, thinkers, and spiritual leaders of the past might very well be walking among us today, alive through us, our children, and our descendants. Hell, then, isn't so much a punishment after death, but rather a cyclical process we all undergo, a journey of reincarnation through which we are repeatedly reborn into physical existence. Assuming heaven is real, new and intriguing questions arise about its nature. Who created heaven? Was it one singular being like God, or was it a collective effort by all the spirits that have ever inhabited it? When was heaven created, and has it always existed? If heaven has always existed, how do we explain structures and buildings within it that mirror earthly locations, such as temples like the Parthenon in Athens? How could these physical structures exist in heaven before being built on earth? Could heaven then be a realm with windows or portals like gates in an airport terminal that leads to every possible universe? If so, how can these universes exist before they're created? Or have they always existed, and we simply cannot perceive them in our physical realm until the moment they unfold? If the testimonies of those who have experienced NDEs are genuine, and what they witnessed wasn't merely a brain-generated hallucination or an illusion of the spirit, then heaven may very well be a real place, existing in a higher dimensional space beyond our own 5 dimensions. It could be a type of universe without a Big Bang or Big Crunch, fitting within the abstract nature of higher dimensions. And if heaven exists as a physical location in a non-physical dimension, could it be possible to open a portal to this place? What would the implications be for us if we could? These questions prompt us to consider the vast technological and spiritual possibilities that could unfold if we begin to better understand our reality. Perhaps one day we'll be able to traverse not just space, but even time itself. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. This quote, often attributed to Tesla, encapsulates the wild journey we're on as we venture into the metaphysical realms of existence. Is string theory and quantum mechanics simply our current, incomplete attempt to understand physical reality and the nature of space-time? What new theories or models might the future bring? Frameworks that more accurately describe the hidden dimensions we have yet to perceive? Why does light seem to respond to observation, shifting its behavior in the quantum slit experiment as if aware it's being watched? How did the Buddha over 2 millennia ago intuitively grasp the principle of dependent origination long before science gave it a name? Are light waves merely potential, simulated by the universe to conserve computational energy, collapsing into particles only when observed? Why is the cat both quantum immortal from its own perspective, yet paradoxically dead from another's point of view? What truly lies inside a black hole, and if we could survive the journey, what would we find on the other side? Could each atom be a portal, a gateway into the quantum depths of black holes? Would this explain the mystery of quantum entanglement? Could humanity one day harness the power to create black holes? Or are we already doing so, perhaps unknowingly, at places like CERN? Is gravity just another facet of the electromagnetic force? And could we someday generate artificial gravity, freeing us from the limits of zero-G environments? Will we discover a power source strong enough to bend and warp space-time, opening wormholes or portals to higher dimensions? Is reality itself a vast simulation where even the wildest fantasies and fictional realms exist somewhere in space and time? Does each Big Bang follow a Big Crunch in an eternal cycle of cosmic birth and collapse? Are authors truly creating new realities, or are they tapping into worlds that already exist, hidden in the fabric of consciousness? Do multiple versions of our lives exist across branching timelines? And if so, could we one day traverse them at will? How can some individuals glimpse the future if the future holds infinite possible outcomes? What determines the path we end up walking through time and experience? Is solipsism more than a philosophical thought experiment? Could we each be dreaming a personal reality? Does the Matrix truly exist, and if so, is it woven into 3D space or hidden in higher dimensions? Are all universes laid out in an infinite grid of bubbles, or do they converge, overlapping at a singular divine center? Is there validity to the treadmill theory that we're not moving through time, but that time moves through us? And if the testimonies of those who've had near death experiences are accurate, what does that mean for our understanding of heaven? Who created heaven, and how could structures like temples and cities appear there if they were first built here on Earth? Truth is stranger than fiction. The questions raised here are just another thread in a much larger tapestry. Take what resonates with you, explore the unknown, and question the answers you've been given. If you're ready to go deeper, subscribe for more explorations into these mysteries. Together, we can seek wisdom beyond the boundaries of belief.